The movie starts with a police officer named Jordan Bryant rushing to stop a woman named Grace Waters from jumping off a building. Despite his efforts, he arrives too late to save her. This marks the beginning of the story. Back home, Jordan comforts his wife, Jasmine, who is a lawyer and is worried about his emotional state after the event. But Jordan keeps his feelings to himself and doesn't want to talk about what happened. The town is filled with rumors about Grace Waters, who is accused of killing her husband. So, when Jasmine's boss, Rory, gives her the case to defend Grace, it comes as a surprise. Rory tells Jasmine that Grace wants to plead guilty, which would make the case simple. All Jasmine needs to do is talk to the district attorney, DA, and arrange a plea deal to avoid a trial. Jasmine's friends, Donnie and Tilsa, are excited and even a little jealous that Jasmine got the case. Jasmine goes to meet Grace for the first time at the correctional facility. The officer assures Jasmine that Grace will be safely shackled, so there's no need to worry. However, when they meet, Grace makes a rude comment about Jasmine's background, pointing out that she went to community college, which offends Jasmine. Grace has no criminal record, so Jasmine believes a 15-year sentence with the possibility of parole would be fair. Grace doesn't seem to mind, but insists on being locked up near her son so she can be close to him. After reviewing Grace's case, Donnie feels there's more to her story. He points out that Grace has done good deeds in the past, like charity work and teaching Sunday school, which could help her defense. But Jasmine is convinced Grace is guilty and wants to plead guilty to avoid a trial. Donnie disagrees and thinks something isn't right. His suspicions cause an argument between them, and they end up leaving Jasmine in Jordan's apartment. Later that night, Jasmine talks to Jordan and tells him that she's no longer passionate about being a lawyer. She admits she doesn't enjoy defending criminals and is only sticking with it long enough to pay off her student loans because the government hasn't forgiven them yet. Despite the tension between them, Jordan is supportive and listens to her feelings. The next day, Grace's son, Malcolm, visits Jasmine. He's convinced that his mother is innocent and begs Jasmine to help her. Jasmine still believes Grace is guilty and explains that there's nothing she can do because Grace wants to plead guilty. However, the DA rejects the 15-year plea deal and insists on giving Grace the maximum sentence, which could include the death penalty. Jasmine urges Grace to take the deal to avoid a trial, but Grace becomes emotional and refuses to sign it. To learn more about Grace's past, Jasmine visits Grace's friend, Sarah. While Jasmine is at Sarah's house, she notices a mysterious woman peeking out of the window, but quickly disappearing when she's spotted. Sarah, who is older, speaks highly of Grace and describes her as a kind person. She says she encouraged Grace to start dating again after her divorce, and even suggested Grace try online dating. Sarah then shows Jasmine a flyer from an art gallery where Grace met her second husband, Shannon DeLong, who was a photographer. As Jasmine investigates further, she notices some inconsistencies in the blood splatter evidence, which doesn't match Grace's confession. Jasmine brings her findings to Rory, asking for permission to bring in an expert to analyze the evidence, but Rory refuses, saying there's no budget for it. Instead, he pressures Jasmine to quickly finalize the plea deal. Feeling the pressure, Jasmine goes to Grace with the plea deal. Before Grace signs it, Jasmine shows her the flyer and asks about Shannon. Grace starts crying and reflects on her relationship with him. Grace recalls how she met Shannon at the gallery and how they quickly became close. Shannon was charming, handsome, and kind, and he seemed perfect for Grace. They started dating, and Grace quickly fell for him, even though she had some worries about their age difference. They spent a lot of time talking about their lives, and Grace proudly told him that she had supported herself after her divorce and had even paid off her own house. Shannon eventually proposed to Grace in a flower garden, and she said yes, and they got married. Their life together seemed perfect. Jasmine wants to know more, but Grace says she's never tried a case like this before. The gossip at the office is that Jasmine is a lawyer who never wins, always taking plea deals. Jasmine feels frustrated, but she keeps pushing forward, hoping to find the truth. Grace continues her story, saying that her life with Shannon seemed ideal at first. He was loving and respectful, always taking photos of her. But then, something began to change. One night, Grace woke up to find Shannon wasn't beside her in bed. She heard him talking on the phone. When he noticed she was awake, he ended the call quickly. Grace asked him who he was talking to, but he snapped at her, telling her not to question him. Though he apologized later, Grace started feeling like something was wrong. Not long after, Grace was called into her office, where she was confronted about a missing $379,000 from her account. This was the first time Grace had heard about the missing money, and she was fired from her job. Her bosses demanded she return the money to avoid going to jail. Grace talked to Sarah about it, and when Shannon came home, she confronted him. Shannon tried to calm her down by showing her photos from a photo shoot he had done with children who had cancer, and Grace felt guilty for doubting him. They tried to find a solution together, and Grace even contacted the police, but they couldn't help. At the bank, Grace found out that she was behind on her mortgage payments, even though she had paid off the house years ago. The bank teller showed her a signature that looked like hers, showing that she had taken out a $375,000 loan. Grace was shocked, and when she checked further, she discovered that the property tied to the loan was abandoned. Eventually, Grace got security footage from the bank that showed Shannon was involved in the fraud. When she confronted him with the footage, Shannon couldn't deny it. He admitted that he owed money to some dangerous people but promised to pay Grace back. However, when he got angry, Grace realized that he had also taken money from her accounts. Shannon then said that, as her husband, he had the right to her money. Grace called the police, but they said it was a civil issue, not a crime. Sarah suggested Grace hire a lawyer, but Grace couldn't afford the expensive fee. Later, when Grace came home, she heard strange noises from the master bedroom. When she went in, she found Shannon and another woman dancing on the bed. They laughed when they saw Grace, and Shannon slammed the door in her face. After the woman left, Grace begged Shannon to give her the money back, but he laughed and told her the money was theirs, not just hers by law. Then, Shannon cruelly told Grace that he did love her, but not the way she loved him. He called her low-hanging fruit and said she should be grateful a man like him was with her. Furious, Grace grabbed a baseball bat and hit Shannon several times, hard enough that his blood splattered on her face. She drove away, called Sarah, and told her she killed Shannon. But when Sarah checked, there was no body. Jasmine is confused because the case has been talked about a lot, and no body was ever found. After hearing Sarah's side of the story, Jasmine meets with her again. Sarah tells Jasmine that she saw Grace's son, Malcolm, that night and starts crying, feeling guilty for her friend. Jasmine begins to think that Grace might have wanted to plead guilty to protect her son. Jasmine gets serious about the case and tells her boss, Rory, that Grace no longer wants to plead guilty and wants to go to trial. Rory gets upset and says he'll talk to Grace, but Jasmine beats him to it, and Grace confirms she wants a trial. Rory warns Jasmine that she'll lose her job if she loses the case, but Jasmine is determined. Donnie, Tilsa, and Jordan all support Jasmine as she prepares for the trial. On the day of the trial, the DA presents a strong case, but Jasmine stands up and argues that Grace can't be guilty of murder if there's no body. Jasmine wants to call Sarah as a witness, but Grace is worried it might get Sarah into trouble. Donnie warns Jasmine that calling Sarah could be risky because the prosecution has strong witnesses. If Sarah testifies about her relationship with Grace, but under the DA's questioning, she gets caught in a lie and eventually admits the truth. Jasmine is shocked because she didn't know about the phone records the DA brought up. Sarah finally admits that Grace had told her she killed Shannon. Jasmine feels betrayed, and Rory criticizes her for being incompetent. Jasmine feels defeated, but Jordan encourages her to keep going. In the closing arguments, Jasmine tries to call Sarah to the stand again, but the judge stops her because both sides have already finished their arguments. Still, Jasmine insists, and as a result, she gets arrested for disobeying the judge's orders. Rory visits her in jail, mocking her and telling her that Donnie will do the closing arguments instead. Jasmine is heartbroken, and Jordan convinces her to apologize to the judge so they can both go home. Despite her efforts, Grace is found guilty of murder. As Grace says goodbye to her friends, she notices Sarah wearing Shannon's Yuzo necklace. Grace realizes that Sarah was never the good friend she thought she was. Jasmine decides to confront Sarah one last time. When she arrives, she sees one of Sarah's tenants acting strangely and brings her inside. The woman tells Jasmine that she doesn't want to end up like the others, including Shane, the woman who jumped off the roof at the beginning of the movie. Jasmine then realizes that Shannon had taken Shane's identity. Meanwhile, Jordan discovers that Sarah has multiple criminal records and rushes to find Jasmine. Jasmine is terrified when she checks the basement of Sarah's house and finds several women chained to the walls, left in the dark. Before she can react, a man grabs her from behind. Jasmine is shocked to discover that Shannon is alive, and, even more surprisingly, he is Sarah's son. Jasmine is horrified. When Jordan arrives at the house, he immediately calls for backup, but Sarah tries to stop him, claiming Jasmine isn't there. However, when Jordan hears Jasmine's phone ringing from inside the house, he kicks the door open. Sarah tries to attack him, but he quickly overpowers her and cuffs her. Shannon, though injured, manages to fight with Jordan. Jasmine, still tied to a chair, finally breaks free and grabs a gun. She shoots Shannon several times, ending the threat. Afterward, they learn that Sarah's real name is Betty Mills and Shannon's real name is Maurice Mills. The judge apologizes to Grace, and her name is cleared. Grace is released, and everyone celebrates, even Rory, who gives Jasmine a rare thumbs up for her hard work. However, Betty Mills manages to escape, and somewhere in America, she's already targeting her next victim.
Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.